Idaho was the #1 most moved to state in America last year. Boise is the #1 metro in the country for in-move interest in 2026. 25% of everyone moving here came from Washington, and 21% came from California, and Oregon rounds out the top 3. That is almost half of every person moving to the Treasure Valley coming from the 3 West Coast states right next to us. And if you live here already, you are watching this, and I know you're tired. You're tired of the traffic, you're tired of the prices, and you're tired of being asked to celebrate growth that has priced your kids out of a starter home. I see you, I understand, I am one of you. But here is what is actually happening and why I'm telling you this together in one video instead of pretending the 2 audiences do not overlap. There is something I am going to call the Idaho Premium. It is not what people pay to leave a high-cost state. It is what they are willing to pay to come here. And the gap is widening. Today we are going to look at the 5 real reasons people are leaving Washington, California, and Oregon for the Treasure Valley. We're going to look at the actual math, the actual policy, and the actual numbers I pulled this week. Now, if you are a local, stay with me, because reason 3 is also the reason your house has appreciated. And reason 5 is the reason your kids might actually be able to buy a house here in 2027. Let me get something out of the way up front. I make a commission when people move to Idaho and buy a house. So when a real estate agent tells you Idaho is winning, yeah, you should ask where I am getting my numbers. So here is where. I am not pulling these numbers from a real estate brochure. I am pulling them from the IRS. I'm pulling them from the US Census, and I'm pulling them from the Washington State Legislature website. I'm pulling them from the Idaho State Tax Commission, and every source is linked in the description. Last year, California lost 100,000 tax filers and $12 billion in income reported to the IRS. Washington lost wealth to Idaho too. Billions of dollars in household income packed up and crossed the border. And in Move Buddha's 2026 first quarter report, Boise has an in-to-out ratio of 1.92. That means almost 2 people are looking to move to Boise for every 1 person looking to leave. So that is not a vibe, that is data. I'm Rachel. I've helped hundreds of families relocate to the Treasure Valley, but I'm also a local. I've grown up watching this valley change. I have skin in this game on both sides. So here is how I'm going to break this down for you. I have 5 reasons people are leaving, and 3 of them you've probably heard, but 2 of them you haven't. And the last one is the one that actually decides whether your kids can afford a house here in 2 years. So let's start with the one nobody can spin. Reason 1, the tax math. Washington just passed Senate Bill 6346, which is a 9.9% state income tax on household income above $1 million. It is going to take effect January 1st of 2028. Now, Washington has not had a state income tax in its entire history. Voters actually rejected it 10 times since 1932. However, this time the legislature passed it without sending it to the voters at all. Now, California's top rate is now 14.4% on wages. That is the highest in the country. And Oregon's state rate is 9.9%. If you live in Portland, they're going to stack 2 more local taxes on top of that. 1 for homeless services and 1 for preschool. If you add it all up, a high earner in Portland is paying 13.9% before the federal government gets a dime. Now, Idaho's rate is 5.3% flat. That is it. That is the rate, whether you make $40,000 or $400,000. So let me walk you through what that actually looks like for a real family. You and your spouse make $400,000 a year. You own a small business. You live in Portland. Your state and local income tax bill is about $50,000 a year. and the local piece is going up again in 2027. You move to Eagle, Idaho, you make the same $400,000, but your Idaho income tax is $21,000. That is a $29,000 difference, and it's every single year. That is a paid off truck, or that is a kid's college fund. It can even be a kitchen remodel, and it is happening on paper every April, whether you noticed or not. So before you tell me that Washington does not have a state income tax, keep watching, because that is changing in 2 years. And the home price math next to the part that actually decides where you live. Reason 2. Let's look at the home price math. When I pulled the numbers in March of this year through our local MLS, Ada County's median home price was $540,945. Canyon County was $432,490. So let's look at what the same family would have paid in the city they just left. Seattle Metro median right now, that is around $815,000. The Portland Metro, about $555,000, basically tied with Ada County. Now, the San Francisco Metro, you're around $1.4 million. And the Los Angeles Metro, you're just under $1 million. Sacramento Metro, about $590,000. So here is the part nobody wants to say on camera. A family selling a 1,500 square foot starter home in Sacramento walks into Ada County with almost $100,000 more in cash than the local family they are competing against. The relocation buyer does not just have a different income, they have a different starting point in cash equity. And that is why the bidding feels rigged if you are local. But it is not rigged. The two buyers are not playing the same game. One of them showed up with $100,000 you didn't have. And that is the part that is real. And that is the part nobody wants to talk about. So here is the other side. If you sold a home in San Fran for $1.4 million and you buy an Eagle for $900,000, you walked away with $500,000 in cash and you cut your monthly housing cost in half. So the question is not whether the math works for relocators. We know the math works. The question is whether the math works for you. Now, whether you are local sitting on equity or whether you are a relocator sitting on a number from selling somewhere else, and whether you are a first-time buyer trying to figure out if you can compete. That is what my Treasure Valley Relocation Audit was built for. My team and I built a tool called the Treasure Valley Relocation Audit. It is going to walk you through your specific income, your equity from your current home, if you have any, and your specific commute window. And it will show you where in the valley your numbers actually work. It's free and it's in the description. If you are a local, there is a section in there for you too. It's going to compare your current neighborhood's appreciation to areas where the numbers still work for an upgrade or a downsize. And most people are leaving real money on the table because they have no idea what their equity actually buys today. So grab it, look at it, run your real numbers, and then come back to the video. Because reason 3 is the one most agents will not say out loud. Reason 3, the Second Amendment and the broader policy gap. I am going to give you the facts and not the politics. So Idaho is what is called constitutional carry or permitless concealed carry. We've had it since 2016. It was expanded statewide in 2020. You can carry concealed without a permit if you're a U.S. citizen and you're 18 or older. Idaho has constitutional preemption. Cities cannot pass their own gun ordinances that override state law. It is written into the Idaho Constitution. And Idaho has no magazine capacity restriction and no state assault weapons ban and no red flag law. There is no state waiting period. And now we're going to compare. Washington just passed an an assault weapons ban in 2023. The magazines are capped at 10 rounds. There is a 10-day waiting period and a state-mandated training course. California also has a 10-round magazine cap, an assault weapons ban that has been on the books since 1989. There is universal background checks on private sales and ammunition background checks. Now, Oregon's Measure 114, passed by voters in 2022, would create a permit to purchase requirement and a 10-round magazine cap. It is currently sitting at the Oregon Supreme Court. The legislature pushed implementation to January of 2028. Now, I am not telling you this as good or bad. I am telling you that for a lot of the families calling me, the policy gap matters. It is part of why they are coming. And there is a broader policy migration happening that goes beyond firearms. In 2025, Idaho passed House Bill 93. It is a refundable tax credit of up to $5,000 per student for K through 12 non-public education expenses, and up to $7,500 for students with qualifying disabilities. The Idaho Supreme Court upheld it unanimously this February. So if you homeschool, Idaho is one of the most homeschool-friendly states in the country. No state notification required. There's no state testing, and there's no teacher qualifications. When it comes to homeschool, the state trusts the parent to make the call. Now compare that to California's Assembly Bill 1955 from 2024, the law that prohibits school staff from disclosing a student's gender identity to parents. Whatever your view on that bill is, and people are passionate on both sides, the practical effect for the families calling me is that they no longer feel like the school district is on their team. That is policy migration, people moving because the rules of the road are different, and not because of jobs, not because of weather, because of the rules. And here is what is wild. This next reason is going to flip the script, because reason 4 is the one I get asked about by locals more than relocators. Reason 4, the safety reality. When I tell relocators Idaho is safe, they think I am giving them a real estate pitch. So let me give you the actual data. Idaho does have the lowest property crime rate in the nation. 736 offenses per 100,000 people. The US average is more than double that. 2024 was the lowest total offense rate Idaho has recorded in 20 years. Washington's property crime rate is the second highest in the country. 2,466 per 100,000. Wallet Hub's 2025 safety ranking put Washington dead last out of all 50 states. That is not a partisan claim. That is the FBI's own numbers. Now, Seattle's violent crime rate is more than 2 times the national average. So I get asked all the time, especially by retired buyers, whether they should worry about their kids and grandkids visiting them in downtown Boise the way they were worried about visiting them in downtown Seattle. My honest answer is no. Downtown Boise feels different because it is different, and the data backs it up. If you're a local listening to this, yes, those FBI numbers are one of the reasons people keep moving here. And I'm not going to act like that is not true, but it is also one of the things you have spent your entire life building: the trust between neighbors, and the fact that you leave your garage open all day or sometimes all night and not think twice about it. The fact that your kids can ride a bike to the park, that is not nothing. That is absolutely the asset. The system that protects it, that is what we have to fight for, and not the people moving in. Heads up, reason 5 is the one that actually matters most if you are a local watching this. Reason 5, the economic anchor. People do not move to a state with a 5.3% income tax if there are no jobs. Idaho's unemployment rate as of February of this year is 3.7%. Total non-farm jobs in the state are 875,900, up year over year. And the anchor is Micron. Micron is a Fortune 500 company headquartered right here in Boise. They make the memory chips that go inside every smartphone, every laptop and the new generation of AI hardware. In June of 2025, Micron announced a second chip manufacturing plant, their second one in Boise, as part of a $200 billion expansion across the United States. The first plant starts production in 2027. So the combined Idaho expansion is projected to create around 17,000 jobs by the end of the decade, direct and indirect. So that is generational. It's not just a sugar high. That is a 30-year economic backbone. But here is the part for the locals watching. The biggest knock on Idaho, the only one that actually matters to the people raising kids here, is that wages have not kept pace with home prices. And that is absolutely true. It has been true since 2020. Here is what just passed in 2026. Senate Bill 1352, the Starter Home Act. It requires cities of 10,000 or more to allow homes on lots as small as 1,500 square feet in new subdivisions of 4 acres or more. That is the most aggressive starter home reform in the country. Texas is at 3,000 square feet. Idaho cut it in half. Now, Senate Bill 1354 says accessory dwelling units up to 1,000 square feet allowed by right. HOAs cannot ban them. And then House Bill 706 are single stair apartment buildings up to 6 stories are permitted. So that cuts construction costs dramatically. Now, House Bill 800 is manufactured homes are legalized on any single family lot down to 400 square feet unless an HOA prohibits it. The Sightline Institute, which is a regional housing think tank, called 2026 Idaho's biggest housing breakthrough year. If you're a local watching this and you have been writing letters to your state senator for years, well, they listen. The system is moving. But is it enough yet? No. And is it going to be enough by 2028 when your kids graduate high school? Maybe, but probably more than you think. That is the part nobody is putting on the news. But before you get too excited, I owe you this other side, because there is a reason Ada County prices are actually down this year. And if you miss it, you will buy the wrong house. Idaho's population growth has cooled. We were at 3% year over year at the peak in 2021 and 2022. We are at 1.4% right now. Ada County's median home price is actually down about 4.25% year over year as of March. And Canyon County is up, but only 1.76%. That is below inflation. Some people who moved here in 2021 are leaving, not because Idaho is bad, because they bought into a vibe instead of doing the math. And the math has caught up with them. That is the expectation gap we have talked about on this channel before. So if you're watching this and you are thinking, I will just move to Idaho and figure it all out, please don't do that. Do not guess on this. You have to run the real numbers. You've got to look at your specific commute, and you've got to look at your specific budget. Look also at the specific neighborhoods you're considering. That is the whole point of the audit my team and I built. And that is the whole point of getting the math right before you make the move and not after. Because I am about to tell you exactly what I do for the people who actually book the call, and this is where the algorithm usually drops you. So stay with me for one more minute. If you have made it this far, you are not casually browsing. You are doing the real research. You're trying to figure out if the math actually works for your family. So here's what I do. My team and I do this together, and I want to help you. So when it comes to your strategy, your numbers, and your neighborhood, I'm here to help. If you are coming from a high-cost state, we will build a side-by-side spreadsheet with your current housing cost as well as your current state and local tax bill. We'll look at your current commute and your current cost of living, and then versus the same picture if you moved here. If you're an Idaho local sitting on equity, I'll pull the comps on your current home, and I will show you what your number buys in the neighborhoods that have actually softened. Some some areas are giving you $20,000 more house this spring than they were last. Now, if you have kids trying to break into the market, I will show you the new construction subdivisions that are pricing for the new starter home rules. And some builders have already adjusted, and I know which ones. If you're an investor watching the policy migration, I'll show you which Treasure Valley submarkets have the best rent to price ratio right now. And the strategy call is free. The calendar link is in the description. And grab the relocation audit first, and then let's run your numbers. Last thing, I've grown up watching this valley change. I remember when Eagle Road was a back road. And I remember when the land where 10 Mile is now was just a cornfield. And I've stood in line at Winco behind a person who was clearly new here. And I've also stood in line behind someone who's a third generation Idaho farmer who was muttering about it. My granddad was one of those farmers. Now, I'm not going to pretend the growth has not cost us something, but I will tell you what I know. The Idaho Premium is real. People are paying it because the policy gap with the West Coast is widening. It's not narrowing. The tax gap is widening, and the housing supply gap is finally narrowing because Idaho is the only state in the West actually building its way out. If you live here, those policy choices are why your house has appreciated. They are also why your kids have a real shot at buying one. If you're coming here, do not bring the rules of the place you left. We do not vote that way, and we do not live that way. Come for the reasons people have always come to Idaho. I'm Rachel with Good News Realty Group. I will not let you make the biggest move of your life without the math first, and I'll see you in the next one.